Game-based learning. What is it? Why is it all the rage in edtech? And is it really all that? The edtech sector is talking about it like it's the holy grail. But let's slow down for a second. First, let's get one thing straight. Game-based learning and gamification aren't the same thing. People often mix them up. Gamification, that's when you take game-like elements, think points, badges, leaderboards, and you slap them onto something else, like a fitness app. It's meant to keep you motivated. You know, like when a fitness tracker gives you a badge for hitting 10,000 steps, or you get a reward for hitting a streak of 30 days. But here's the catch. You're not actually playing a game. You're just getting game-like rewards. It's a way of putting dopamine hits into something that someone somewhere decided isn't fun in and of itself. Now, game-based learning, that's a whole other ballgame. In game-based learning, the learning is baked into the game itself. The game is the lesson. Think of it like this. In a maths game, solving equations isn't a side task quest. It's how you progress. No equations, no next level. It's not about collecting badges, it's about learning through play. Let's look at Duolingo as an example. The daily streaks and points, that's gamification. But when you translate sentences to win challenges, that's game-based learning. You're not just learning a language, you're learning by playing a game. So does game-based learning actually work, or is it just hype? Let's look at a few studies and see what we see. Our first study is the effects of game-based and standard executive control training on the cognitive and academic abilities of elementary school children. Quite a mouthful. It was led by the researchers of University of Koblenz-Landau and the Idea Center in Frankfurt, Germany. Published in Developmental Science in 2019, this study looked at how game-based and traditional training methods impact cognitive abilities and reading skills in elementary school children. The researchers worked with 153 children ages 9 and 10. They underwent 21 training sessions whose focus was to see how game-based learning affected core executive function. Now, think of executive function as a set of mental skills that helps children organize, focus, remember instructions, and manage their responsibilities. Executive function is also related to working memory, flexible thinking, and self-control. Children use executive function to stay on track with homework, control their emotions in class, and think things through before making an impulsive decision. Simply put, think of it as a skill that can be trained. Without strong executive function, learning can be difficult because the child will have trouble focusing and following instructions. And that's pretty much the most important thing in school life and future careers. As the children develop executive function, they gain the tools needed for problem solving, time management, and handling new challenges without prior knowledge of how to solve them. Imagine someone who is fast on their feet, who never gets fazed no matter what is going wrong. That someone has amazing executive function skills. And these abilities don't just help in school, they're essential in later life too. Adults with strong executive function tend to manage their work well, they meet deadlines, they adapt to changes in their job. For children, building these skills early sets a foundation for both academic success, relationships, and their career. Check out our video on the importance of math to learn more about how it affects executive function. Linked below. Anywho, in the study of the 153 children, they were split into groups, with some doing traditional tasks and others engaged in game-based exercises targeting executive function. To assess the long-term effects, the researchers then checked in with the kids 3 months after the training had wrapped up. The results from the game-based training were impressive. Kids in the game-based group didn't just do better at the tasks directly linked to executive function. They also improved significantly in reading comprehension and reading speed. For instance, the children who trained in flexibility using games showed a huge 46% improvement in sentence comprehension. Playing learning games made them understand sentences almost half as easily as the other group. And these weren't just short-term results. The children retained these improvements in reading comprehension and speed even 3 months after the training had ended, showing that the benefits of game-based learning last well beyond the immediate training period. This is a very important detail. Another interesting point is how much more motivated the kids were when they were using the game-based training. For the children who trained with games, motivation scores dropped by half of what they did compared to the traditional training group. It shows that learning using games keeps the kids almost doubly more engaged and interested, which is a game changer for keeping up with long-term learning. So, game-based learning is improving understanding, retention, and motivation. The researchers found the same with impulse control and confidence. Children were reacting faster under pressure, and the result was that they were growing more confident in their own abilities. And here's something else the researchers noted. Kids who had lower scores at the beginning benefited the most from game-based training. This means that games can really help those students who may initially struggle when adapting to a new topic. It leveled the playing field by allowing them to catch up with their more advanced peers. One thing that stands out in this study is the improvement in skills that children weren't directly practicing. This is called the transfer effect. For example, children who trained in inhibition tasks showed better control in new similar tasks like a go-no-go tests, even though they hadn't practiced that specific task. Similarly, children in the flexibility training group became quicker and more adaptive at switching between tasks. Their task switching skills improved, meaning they handled changing tasks more smoothly without losing focus. The game-based flexibility group also got better at handling multiple tasks at once. In dual task tests, these kids performed more accurately, showing that the game-based approach helped them juggle multiple things more effectively. So what does this all mean? This study shows that game-based learning doesn't just engage children, but also delivers real measurable improvements in cognitive and academic skills that stretch beyond what they're learning directly. The kids trained with games read faster, they remembered more, they controlled their impulses better, and they stayed motivated during the learning process. And because the games helped children feel more in control of their learning, they were more likely to stay engaged. Our next study is Foundations of Game-Based Learning, led by NYU, the City University of New York, and Columbia University. Published in Educational Psychologist in 2015, this study doesn't bring new data, but instead reviews years of research to dig into the question, what makes game-based learning so effective? They examined a wide range of studies and outlined 4 areas where games tended to affect students' learning: cognitive, motivational, emotional, and social. Let's start with cognitive. Games keep players highly engaged because they put the knowledge being learned into context. Essentially, this lets the players build mental connections between what's being learned and how it can actually be applied in real life. Rather than learning things in a vacuum, it helps the children create a structure that they can then populate with what's being learned. So the same way cognitive skills are linked to motivation, so too is motivation linked to emotion. This study also points to emotional engagement as a key player in why game-based learning is effective. Games use elements like music, visuals, storytelling to shape a player's emotional experience. That makes what they're learning more memorable. Look at books versus film. A book expects you to do the work of using your imagination to fill the gaps. Movies do that work for you, guiding you along with visuals and music. Now, I'm a book reader. I love books more than most people. But I can't deny that film is more popular and captures more audiences because it's more emotionally engaging. Social engagement is also, unsurprisingly, one of the reasons why game-based learning is more effective over traditional learning. Many games today incorporate multiplayer elements, or at least they encourage teamwork and communication. Learners play together by default, over having to create their own study groups. They're building social skills and learning from each other. This deepens their understanding of whatever is being learned. One of the most fascinating ideas in this study is what's called the zone of proximal development. This term from developmental psychology describes where a child is ready to learn something new, but they can't quite get there on their own yet. For teachers, this is the sweet spot. All that's needed is a nudge in the right direction. Good educational games hit this zone perfectly by offering hints and support when the player is struggling. This helps them tackle challenges that are just out of reach. It's like when you're learning to ride a bike and somebody is holding onto you so you can keep your balance. The game supports or scaffolds to help players build the skills they need step by step. And this next one is hugely underestimated by a lot of people in education. What about when students make mistakes? This study discusses something which is fundamental in learning, which is what they call graceful failure. In games, failing has low stakes. This encourages the players to experiment, and they're not mortified if they fail. In most learning settings, making mistakes feels high risk, but games let kids try, fail, try again without any penalties. It's a safe learning environment for trial and error, which is how humans learn best. Failure is a feature, not a bug. Failure isn't to be feared, but embraced. Children who learn to fail often and fail better, they learn to fail up. This is a crucial life skill. Another point the authors raise is how games adapt to each player's progress. Unlike a one-size-fits-all classroom setting, games can adjust difficulty to challenge learners at just the right level for them. This adaptivity keeps the experience engaging and personal. It makes sure that players are always working at a level that's right for them. Learning games also have a knack for transferring skills to real life. For example, kids might learn patterns or problem-solving strategies in a game that they can then use outside of it. This transfer of learning happens because learning games simulate real-world scenarios, allowing players to practice skills in realistic contexts. Another technique games use to support learning is what's called multiple representations of information. They deliver information in different forms like visuals, text, or audio, which helps learners grasp really complex ideas. You might get visual cues, spoken directions, and written prompts all working together to reinforce your understanding of a difficult topic. Then there's another element that we call flow state. You've probably heard of it. It's when you're so absorbed in something that time just flies by. Games often put players into this flow state by providing just the right level of challenge so that the player is fully zoned in on what they're doing without ever feeling bored or overwhelmed. The study also points out how games give players autonomy. Games allow learners to make choices. They feel in control of their learning. They are the driver of their own educational journey, which can be very empowering at a young age. So this study shows that game-based learning isn't about playing for fun. As a game-based platform, this is a challenge we face at Matific. People have a set idea of what games are. They're entertainment. But really, platforms like Matific are just leveraging the mechanisms of games to keep students cognitively engaged, emotionally motivated, and working together to learn more effectively. When these elements come together, we create a learning experience that's more engaging, more effective, and they adapt in ways that traditional one-size-fits-all methods can't match. Okay, let's look at our last study. Enhancing early numeracy skills with a tablet-based math game intervention, a study in Tanzania. This comes from researchers at Seoul National University and Ewha Women's University in South Korea. Published in 2020 in Education Tech Research and Development, this study explores the impact of tablet-based math games on early numeracy skills in Tanzania, a setting where access to educational resources is limited. The researchers worked with 122 first-year primary school kids, assigning them randomly into two different groups. One used a tablet-based maths game, and the other followed a regular classroom curriculum. Over 46 days, the intervention focused on foundational skills like recognizing numbers, comparing quantities, and doing basic addition and subtraction. After the intervention, the researchers compared results to see how well the game-based approach supported early maths learning. The findings were clear, and I'll keep it simple. The children in the intervention group scored higher on every math skill tested. For instance, they made big gains when comparing numbers or quantity discrimination, with an average improvement 8 times higher than the control group. They also saw a huge boost in addition. The intervention group's scores increased while the control group actually dropped slightly. Researchers noted that these gains came about because the game repeated addition tasks in a way that let the children quickly grasp the concept behind addition. But the control group were relying on the teacher's skill and patience at explaining the concept again and again. So again, remember the element of judgment-free feedback? The children weren't scared to make a mistake. They would try and try and try and fail and fail and fail because the game never lost its temper. Subtraction followed a similar pattern, with the intervention group improving while the control group's performance again dropped. So an important thing to note here is that the children were in an area with low resources. Now, we've discussed how EdTech solutions have shortcomings in this area. Check out that video linked below. But if the children in low-resourced areas do get access to an EdTech solution, the advantage is that their teachers can then provide a more consistent and higher quality education than they would otherwise be able to if they don't have enough books, if there are too many children in the class, and so on. More important is how quickly the children adapted to the technology. Many had never used the tablet before, yet by the end of the study, they were all operating the app completely independently. This highlights how young children can quickly become comfortable with a technology that's designed for them. Even in low-resource settings, if they're given the opportunity. Now, if you look at the other studies we talked about today, the Maths app offered instant judgment-free feedback. When the children make a mistake, they immediately see where they've gone wrong. Now, I'm probably beating a dead horse here, but this instant correction process is incredibly valuable because it reinforces what's being learned without making the child feel bad when they fail. The study's findings also aligned with well-known learning theories from Piaget and Dewey, two famous experts in educational psychology. They stress the importance of experiential learning. This means learning with hands-on, concrete actions taken by the children, reflecting on what they're learning, understanding the abstract concepts behind what's being learned, and actively experimenting with what they're learning. The design of the maths game supported each of those cognitive development steps in a way that was natural and effective for the children. The built-in social component of the game also meant that group activities flowed quickly and delivered results. The kids were building social skills like communication, collaboration, which arguably is as valuable as the math skills themselves. And since the app was aligned with Tanzania's national math curriculum, the children were learning skills directly relevant to their educational standards. If a game-based learning app can align itself like this, it's incredibly valuable for the teachers because it's supporting their teaching to deliver standardized content across the entire country. It scales no matter what the size of the school is. And aligning with the two previous studies we looked at, data from the study showed that the app adapted itself to each child's progress, making tasks harder or easier based on their individual ability. This kept the kids challenged without overwhelming them, another feature which can only be achieved with one-on-one tutoring or a good game-based learning platform. Okay, let's sum up. One of the most meaningful outcomes of the study wasn't that it was a more effective way of learning maths than traditional methods. It was the positive shift in children's attitudes towards mathematics. The game-based approach helped reduce anxiety around numbers, making them more enjoyable and helping students feel more comfortable with maths concepts. If children learn that maths can be played, they see maths for the game it inherently is, and that realization stays with them for life. This study basically shows that game-focused edtech can work even in low-resource settings. By providing accessible, adaptable, and engaging ways to learn, games help bridge educational gaps where resources are limited. Now, of course, I have to point out my bias. I'm a true believer in game-based learning. I do this for a living because I think it has a lot more advantages than disadvantages. But I would be a hypocrite if I did not point that out. Let's wrap things up by looking at the bigger picture. James Paul G., a best-selling author in this space, laid out how games mirror learning environments. They create problem-solving worlds where players learn by doing. Trial and error, decision-making, and adjusting strategies on the fly. That's powerful because it's how we learn in real life. Game-based learning platforms, where the focus is to turn the subject into a game, not to play a game and have the added benefit of learning something while you play. Specifically, game-based learning has endless benefits and potential. As I've hammered home, they give immediate feedback, which keeps learners engaged and in control while avoiding fear and anxiety. G also pointed out the role of identity in learning. Players assume roles, they take on challenges, and they customize their experience. This is something high performers do. G also points out the role of identity in learning. Players assume roles, they take on challenges, and they customize their experience. This is something high performers do. Have you ever seen the class superstar carrying around a folder with 1,000,000 colored tags? They open their notes and everything is neat. Concepts are written in different colors and they look like they love learning. That's because to them, learning is a game. Ask any top mathematician what maths is to them and they'll tell you it's an endless system of puzzles and games. Ask a computer scientist about programming and they'll tell you the same. Ask a physicist about their field and they'll tell you that it's a way to listen to the symphonies of the universe. Seeing the game in anything makes you want to master everything about it. And games don't just stop at the individual. They encourage social collaboration and what people today call design thinking, both essential skills for tackling complex problems. And of course, nothing, and I mean nothing, is perfect. Game-based learning has a lot of limitations. For starters, it doesn't fully cover the deeper cognitive and emotional skills that we learn from our teachers. Sure, games can sharpen problem solving, but they don't push us into nuanced debates and critical thinking the way we experience when we're in the classroom. There's also the most important part of being a teacher. A game might guide you on a predetermined path up the mountain of knowledge, but it doesn't care about you. It won't ask you how you're doing. It won't notice when there's something wrong. It won't notice when there's something under your struggle. I'll end it with a story from the Heath brothers. Kira Sloop described 1983 as the worst year of her life. At 11, she was awkward, dealing with her parents' divorce and struggling with low self-esteem. Choir was the one thing she looked forward to. Her family was always telling her that she had the voice of a country singer. But early in the school year, her music teacher destroyed her confidence. During practice, this teacher singled her out and told her that her voice wasn't working. She wasn't blending, and she asked her to just pretend to sing, to mouth the words. Humiliated, Kira spent the rest of the year just mouthing the words at practices. The next summer, Kira joined a camp for gifted kids. She saw that they had a choir group, and she was hesitant, but something made her join anyway. At first, she was just mouthing the words like her choir teacher had told her to, but the teacher of the camp noticed and asked her to stay after class. This teacher, who Kira described as a gentle and encouraging flower child, sat with her after class and they played the piano together. They spent hours harmonizing together until Kira was hoarse. They did this day after day. Eventually, Kira relaxed and started to sing the way she always had. She remembers the teacher looking her in her eyes and saying, "You have a distinctive and beautiful voice." That moment changed everything for her. She regained her confidence and went on to thrive in her school's theater productions. She even ended up singing at Carnegie Hall. This was a long way from the girl who had been asked to mouth her lines. Teachers are more than just instructors. They're the quiet architects of our lives. They shape not only what we know, but who we become. In every classroom, a teacher holds the power to ignite the spark, to transform fear into understanding, and to see the potential in a student when no one else does. They're irreplaceable because they do what no technology or program can. They believe in us, even when we don't believe in ourselves. A teacher's influence stretches far beyond test scores or lessons. It's in those moments of compassion, patience, encouragement. When they care, they fire a child like an arrow into the future. Sometimes with a single word of guidance or kindness, they shape an entire lifetime. Their belief in us can instill lifelong confidence, often when we need it the most. And long after the lessons are forgotten, we remember the teacher who saw us for who we were and raised us to be who we could be. In a world of constant change, the role of the teacher stays the same. Because education is more than learning facts. It's about human connection. Teachers are the guardians of possibility, and without them, that possibility fades. They are irreplaceable because they don't just teach us, they raise us. Thank you so much for sticking with us to the end. If you enjoyed this video, give us a like, subscribe, and please comment down below. It really helps us grow and reach more children with Matific. We've got lots more videos on ed tech, game-based learning, and mathematics coming your way. If there's another topic you'd like me to cover, let me know in the comments below. I've also linked the sources I used in this video so you can check them out in the description. And don't forget to try Matific. It's a game-based math learning system for students aged 5 to 15. We have thousands of activities. We're in 10,000 schools, and hundreds of thousands of teachers, with millions of students solving billions of math problems every year. Matific is not a game that teaches math. Matific teaches that math is a game. So try it free for 7 days. The link is in the description. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time.
What is it about math? Why do so many kids grow to hate it? Imagine this. Imagine being made to memorize sheet music but never getting the opportunity to play. Imagine studying the lyrics, but never hearing the song. Next, imagine you have to memorize and reproduce these lyrics perfectly, or you fail. Your teacher makes you do it in front of the whole class, you mess up, and everyone laughs. When a child tells us, "I hate that," we at Matific say, "Good, you should hate that. You are correct in hating that." Students who hate math, or they're afraid of it, or they have math anxiety, will love the opportunity to instead play a game to learn. We've seen it before, all over the world. It's the ones who hate math that love Matific the most. That love of Matific slowly lets them understand that what they're enjoying about the experience is what math really is. And let's not forget, Matific can also adapt to stretch the abilities of kids gifted at math to make them even better at it. With over 2,000 games purpose-built to give meaning to math, there are no angry red crosses. There is no embarrassment in the face of failure. With Matific, students quickly learn that getting the answer wrong isn't a bug, it's a feature. Once students see math as a puzzle, they unlearn their anxiety and they start to think that maybe, just maybe, math can be fun. It's been true in so many countries around the world. The activities that Matific kids love in Australia are the same ones that kids love in the US, are the same ones that they love in Canada and Latin America and Africa and Europe and Asia. That's what we're bringing into your home, your school, and the lives of eager learners all over the world. The future of game-based education. Matific is not a game that teaches math. Matific teaches that math is the game. So let's change how our children view mathematics. And let's spread this message as far and wide as we can. Try Matific now, absolutely free, and watch your children become math superstars.